I watched your coverage of what you just talked about when you were talking about Trump threatening Zuckerberg, right? You were reading or you were watching CNN pundits who were discussing this, and they left a critical part out. And so did you, interestingly enough, Luke.
The more concerning thing to me that often is missed was the censorship of Eric Ciaramella, which just by saying that name, YouTube might delete the stream.
Don't say it then. Shit, this is why I came all this way.
I think
just say Eric C. Yeah.
We'll send you the broadcast.
The point needs to be made. When an employee of the CIA, I believe he was an employee, but when someone working with the CIA released information that resulted in the impeachment of Donald Trump, and the Real Clear Investigations released the report that the individual had been identified by as Eric Ciaramella, every major social media platform, I think Twitter did not do this at the time, would censor any information with that name without warning, without a strike, just simply remove it. So I think when we look at the censorship of big tech, we can talk about public information like COVID vaccines. It is particularly worrying to me that Facebook, in all of this, especially with this story, they had a portal made for the feds to report quote unquote misinformation. We're actively censoring stories of deep political merit, and they still have never accounted for it nor answered for it.
Yeah, so let me.
And Zuckerberg says he was coerced.
Let me jump in.
He said he felt coerced.
So, as Jessiah and I mentioned, we're not really interested in being blindly partisan as some folks are. And so if you have an example of the Biden administration crossing a line, we'll just denounce it. Strange that you wouldn't do the same with Trump, which is a part of what I'm trying to flesh out here. But whenever the case was brought to the Supreme Court relating to some of this with Facebook, you might remember, and they ended up ruling against the plaintiffs who were saying they were unfairly censored because of the government being involved. And one of the things they found out was that the social media platforms, long before government was asking anything on COVID misinfo, already was implementing a terms of service stuff on that. And you can have an issue with that. And in this new world where we have these platforms, all this power, we're going to be grappling over what the right terms of service, probably not no terms of service, but certain rules. But we can all disagree on how that's structured. But whether or not it's like a violation of the First Amendment relating to the government getting involved, it got slapped down by the Supreme Court because there's just not the evidence that the platforms felt coerced. Because you will look at the percentages, even in portals like this one, where they would say, hey, we think this violates your term of service. And the platforms would go, no, it doesn't. Yeah. And they would say no. And then the government would go, all right, that's what we can do.
This is
new. I
new.
mein, censorship in general is a problem.
Well, this is new stuff. What we're talking about now, this is new stuff which is coming out. Zuckerberg whistleblowing about a bunch of stuff we did not previously know.
Right.
You're referencing stuff that has come out, multiple years ago. What I'm saying to you specifically here is that there's no way for you to say, if you're going to say Trump is an authoritarian, he's evil, he's there to curtail the media, this type of thing. If the Biden administration's working in tandem, their Justice Department, trying to be coercive to Mark Zuckerberg to censor off information, specifically from conservatives, by the way. They were the ones who were mostly trying to give a counter narrative on the COVID-19 stuff, different political stuff, the J6 stuff. He said he was approached by the DOJ on all of these different things, and so was Facebook. It sounds like they're trying to create a narrative within one of the largest social media company platforms, which is out there, which benefits their administration. How much more authoritarian can you get than that?
And they banned Trump off everything right after.
Yeah.
Like they literally banned him. He got nuked
That was
off
while
the
Trump
internet.
was president.
That was while Trump was president, number one. But just real quick on this. So this, yes, he's referencing a Supreme Court case, which could you agree? You're right that the Zuckerberg revelations are relatively recent.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's my question.
Sure.
Do you trust Mark Zuckerberg? Here's the reason why. I know you don't, Tim. I know
Zuckerberg,
that.
man.
So I think it's important because a lot of people who even now are happy that Zuckerberg is adopting a more MAGA posture, for example. They don't trust him. They call him a fair weather friend because wherever the political winds blow. Is it possible, especially because as far as I know, he's not produced any corroborating evidence, that he's bullshitting just to try to ingratiate himself with you?
Yeah, so you have a couple of problems here, which is what would his motivation actually be to do this? So to be fair, do I trust Zuckerberg? No, of course not. I don't trust any of these tech giants. That includes Elon Musk. I don't trust him either. But
Fucking cheers, man.
But here's the thing,
Sure.
right? People do have motivations for the things they do. What would Zuckerberg's motivation be in expressing? And by the way, he began expressing this before he knew what the outcome of the new election was going to be even. Okay, he was expressing this before that.
Yeah, but
So-
he didn't like drop like any of these sort of like.
So the thing is like, what is his motivation here for explaining that the Department of Justice is reaching out and trying to censor various conservative content, except that he wants to be freed from the yoke of governments approaching Facebook and doing this because it creates all sorts of problems for him in his market, right? He actually has more of an incentive to tell the truth about this than he does to lie.
Well, I don't know if he's lying. I'm just saying, like, there seems to be, even on the MAGA side, an understanding that he has a credibility issue, number one. Number two, as far as I know, he's not corroborated any of these claims, which perhaps he will in the future. And number three, I think that he would have an incentive to say these things, certainly after the election, given that Trump won, but even before, when the outcome is in doubt, in order to, you actually said it yourself, to distance his social media company from any government intervention.
Yeah, but his incentive then would be to tell the truth about this. There could be, for instance, a guy like Zuckerberg has such a high profile. It would not surprise me if he was called in for congressional hearings, if they were running investigations into various forms of interference, things like this. He would need to actually have his story straight.
But he just
he
said
would
like
need.
but like that specific example, this big like headline explosive event where they called me on the phone and they were cursing us out. Rogan said, "Haha, those recordings would be sick," and he's like, "No, we don't have any recordings." So he's almost making claims specifically that as of this moment he can't possibly corroborate.
Yeah,
And that's
Yeah,
just-
but
well,
but the
let me
thing
jump
is,
in. I
it's
feel
like I'm not disputing that he can't corroborate those claims at the moment, right? And like you said, evidence could go out in the future.
Right.
What I'm saying to you is it's a matter of incentives. What's his actual incentive to lie versus telling the truth about this? Seems like he has more incentive to tell the truth about it than to lie about
he's
it.
doing this.
let's have-
yeah,
Yeah,
he's doing,
self-preservation. I mean,
he's doing this in line with donating, Meta donating $1 million to
Trump's inaugural fund.
Trump's inaugural fund, and also speaking more positively about Trump, and also hiring Dana White, and like doing a lot of things that will make Trump like him more. And Trump goes on video, yeah, I think this is in response to my threats. And so my point about bringing up that case was, I think he's just blowing it out of proportion because every time.
No, yeah, surely you give a shit about
Oh, no,
that.
I'm about
Like,
to.
yeah.
I'm
Every
going
time-
to respond when he's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Every time it's been sort of, there's been a chance to prove that there's this coercion going on. They can't, which is why I brought up the thing. He is bringing like new versions of the allegations, but they're just overinflated versions of what they were saying before, which they can't prove because in reality, unless something crazy comes out, that's not really the phenomenon that's taking place. But I do want to just note that both Jessiah and I, have demonstrated on our own shows constantly that we can criticize the
let's
Biden
talk about
administration.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
curious, and this is why we came
Hang
here.
on,
is to see if you can
before you
defend
shift it,
Trump's things.
before you shift it, I want
I
to
feel like we
respond
just gave a very nuanced take
briefly,
on that.
very
We gotta-
briefly.
I want to give you guys the final point on this topic before we move on. So if you
Yeah.
want to hit it, or
I want to hit it real quick, and then
Yeah, I'll go after you.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
listen.
Sure.
I watched your coverage of what you just talked about when you were talking about Trump threatening Zuckerberg. Right? You were reading or you were watching CNN pundits who were discussing this, and they left a critical part out, and so did you. Interestingly enough, Luke, which is where Trump said, "If he's guilty of crimes." If he's guilty of crimes, that was the actual tweet. If he's guilty of crimes, then we will take action. You left all of that out.
Oh no!
Yeah. Oh no, you
I
did.
did. You're right.
You
I did not
did.
mention
You
that
left it all out.
specific part of the quote. I know we're gonna move on, but just so you know, that's what Trump says every time. Obviously, if MSNBC,
Yeah, you left it all. You left it out on
Well, and he
purpose.
didn't just say
Zuckerberg-
take
oh,
action. He said
please
imprison him
stop.
for life. Man,
If
I mean,
he was guilty
Yes,
of
course
crimes,
he did say that.
shouldn't he be
All right,
guilty of crimes
Oh
that
no!
merit
Did the president say if you're guilty of crimes, I'm going to imprison you? Oh
what
my
crimes?
God!
What crimes? Which crimes merit
I
life
will note
imprisonment?
that.
Like
I will
that's
note
pretty.
that next time, I promise, because it doesn't change the argument.
Yeah.
I stand by what I said.
Yeah.
I'll note that he said that's going to be his argument.
That's the crux,
important.
Luke. That's the crux. What's wrong with the president saying if you're guilty of crimes, I'm going to put you in jail?
And this is-
Nothing.
Would
Yes,
you
exactly.
grant that premise for Trump's convictions? Trump is guilty of crimes.
What crimes?
Falsifying business records, 34 counts. He was found guilty in a court of
Oh
law.
my God.
No,
There we go. There we go.
No, listen to me.
Proved it.
Listen to me.
That's his
Here,
point.
but here's my point.
Okay.
You can think that those charges are bullshit, but this idea that it's no big deal if he's guilty of
And if
crimes.
the President Biden came out and said, if Trump's guilty of crimes, which he has, right, he should go to jail, which he has. Yeah, and you know what the liberals say? Hang on, the liberals go, yeah, absolutely.
I'll address this
It's
because
like, what are you talking about?
we can address this because there's a perspective issue. I think you make a good point that saying if someone's guilty of crimes, behind this view that there's a fear Trump will levy false crimes is a legitimate concern. The issue with the perspective is people do not believe Trump is legitimately guilty of crimes.
Sure.
And so the argument is that Trump is saying legitimately guilty of crimes, and the crimes that Trump has been charged with are illegitimate.
Yeah.
That's the perspective.
So we're saying the
Well, I
people
think
he
it-
chooses to
I don't
say
think
that
so. I
about
think the perspective
are people
here-
he has political differences.
I think the perspective here is they're saying, isn't it, if Trump says this, shouldn't you hold the same standard with Democrats? But we do. Biden has said this multiple times. Biden has said if Trump's guilty of crimes, he should go to prison.
I'm
If
not
this person is guilty of crimes, they should go to prison.
I'll just-
like they say it. You know what I mean? Like what do you
I'm
mean?
not aware. I'm not aware of Biden ever advocating on Trump's guilt or innocence publicly or saying that he should be in prison. My understanding is he's been about as fastidious as a politician can be.
He
Maybe
avoids
there's
that
some
topic
exception,
altogether,
but
yeah.
I'm not aware of it. And
If-
by the way, if
Wait, you think that Democrat,
Maybe it was
Democrat,
asked,
the
but-
entire
you said
Democrat
Biden.
Party,
No, wait, whoa.
Biden too. Yes,
Andrew,
Biden too.
We've been having a good thing here.
Yeah,
Come on.
Biden too. If it is the
So
case,
have we.
okay, that
You guys have actually had the better
that-
thing. I'll be honest
that
with you.
any of these people come out and say if Donald Trump is guilty of, like, wouldn't you guys say that if Donald Trump is guilty of crimes, he should go to
No,
prison?
wait, yes.
Like, what do you
Let's
mean?
just- let me just lay a little framework here. I agree. Of course, the statement is uncontroversial. If someone's guilty of crimes and they're, of a certain level, they should go to prison, obviously.
Yeah.
But any person who unjustly imprisons people says that. And so we're saying of the people Trump chooses to say they should be put in prison or say they should be locked up or say that they should be targeted by the government, it's a very specific set of people he chooses, which is when someone wrongs him politically, all of a sudden now he randomly mentions if you're guilty of crimes, you should go to prison. When they're not accused of crimes, there's no reason to believe they've committed crimes. He'll just throw it out. Obviously, that would be his justification. Zuckerberg committed crimes. But he's just saying that to scare him because there's no reason.
That's
to
an
believe Zuckerberg has
interjection
committed
of an emotional state, not a provable one.
I don't
So,
see any difference between the.
All
parties
you're
in
doing
this
is interjecting your. This is how I perceive it. I perceive
I
that
mean,
he's politically targeting people because he said if you're guilty of crimes, you're going to
Let me
jail.
tell you like this. If President, I'll just again throw you a bone here because maybe there's something out there that I miss. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of Biden's, every statement he's made. If he ever adopted the same sort of posture that Trump did of like
Fox News.
Fox News, a great example. They had to pay $787 million in the biggest defamation settlement in American history because it was very possible that they would lose that case against Dominion. We've never seen anything like that in liberal media. Biden could have, by Trump's own logic, said, you know what? Fox just had to pay nearly $1 billion in a loyalty tithe to Donald Trump. We never sent MSNBC or CNN. So you know what? I'm ordering my DOJ to investigate Fox News. And if Fox News executives are guilty of these things, we're going to throw them away for life or imprison them for life. Biden could have said that. He didn't. And if he did say it, that'd be super fucked up because I do think what you're
Unless
describing.
there's secret subpoenas.
Well, what you're describing
Which
as
would surprise me.
what you're describing as an anodyne statement to me takes a sinister tone when it comes from a person in power.
Oh,
By the
it's
way,
a sinister tone. So
when-
it's an
depending-
emotional state.
well,
Obviously.
It's an emotional state.
well, you could reject. I'm just saying that I would hold Biden to the same standard if he did some of that shit.
Yeah.
Let's jump to this next subject. Donald Trump is expected to sign, some reports say 100 executive orders in a single day. It's going to be nuts. Many of them pertain to drilling and energy. Joe Biden just banned drilling. They say
Is
it's
it nearshore?
the near shore, that it's going to be difficult to overdo. To overturn those orders. We don't know for sure. When Joe Biden first got in, he did two major things. He shut down Keystone and he banned fracking on public land. Trump wants to reverse these things. So I'm curious your guys' thoughts.
Well, being soy liberals who believe in climate change, I would love to see a more, at least, diverse energy portfolio where we, try to embrace renewable energy as much as possible. I will just say that energy production under Biden achieved the highest levels in recorded history, even compared to Trump's.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what Trump is going to do. I don't
Including
know.
oil production, to be clear.
Yeah, so, including oil production. My God, at the end of his, first year, he was signing lease and permits for drilling and fracking at a rate that was higher than under Trump. He was just trying to quell new permits and leases because there was a huge backlog.
Got it.
So yeah, energy production's great under Biden compared to even Trump. I don't know what it is about these particular EOs that's going to be so difficult for Trump to undo with a stroke of a pen, because my understanding is if the president signs it with an EO, it can be revoked pretty easily with an EO.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.